A good friend of mine is a sales rep, and he's made over $4 million in commission over the past 5 years. And I've known him for a long time and have worked really closely with him to learn his process for demoing software. So in this video, what I'm going to show you is step by step exactly how I structure demos based on the feedback from the best salesperson I've ever met. Let's dive right in. At this point in my career, I've worked with over 45 different B2B software and service companies and helped them build a repeatable sales process. And along the lines, I've had to spend an unbelievable amount of time structuring demos for software companies. Now, this is a really important part of your entire sales process, of course, because this is where you drive for the actual sale of your product. But most organizations drop the ball with their demo. They are so boring. They are long-winded. They don't really put the prospect first throughout the demo, and it is a mess. If you've ever been a buyer, you know software demos typically suck, but I don't want you to have that experience. So let me share with you a quick story of how I came up with this entire process for building a software demo. I was not a great salesperson when I first started selling. I was young. I didn't fully understand the buyers that I was selling to, and it was represented in my close rate. I just didn't close all that many people, but I closed enough to keep my job. Now, times are different, right? Like if you're watching this video around the time it was published, the economy is a mess. There's been huge tech layoffs. It is difficult today to sell software, way more difficult than it ever was before. So what happened to me was I finally decided to start asking around, flexing my network a little bit. And I met a good friend who's now a good friend who shared with me sort of his secrets for running a great software demo. And over the years, between feedback from him and other really talented salespeople, I've put together a structure for software demos that's incredibly effective. So the first thing my friend asked me was, how are you starting off your meetings? And of course, like, you're going to start from the beginning. I kind of laughed at the question. I was like, starting off the meetings, I just start. Hey, how you guys doing? Let's jump in. And then I just start asking them questions about their business so that way I can better tailor the demo. And he started laughing and said, that is exactly what you don't want to do, because what you're not doing that's important is you're not providing any clarity on what the process is going to look like from here. So the prospect doesn't have the roadmap of what buying looks like for you. And as a salesperson, that's a really important part of the puzzle. So he explained to me a technique that originally, I believe, is from Sandler, if there's a big training company, of doing the upfront contract. And what an upfront contract is simply an advanced introduction where you introduce what you're going to be covering on that call, what the decision that's going to be made at the end of the call is going to look like, and also understand the expectations from the prospect. So it sounds something like this. Hey, prospect, I'm super excited to walk you through our solution and share with you exactly how it's going to be able to help you solve X problem. Before I jump into that, I'm going to be asking you a couple of questions because I really want to understand your world a bit better so I can tailor our demo to actually fit your current state. Is that fair? Great, thanks. After that, we'll talk through what options there are for you to actually implement this tool into your organization. And really the decision we're going to come to today is if it makes sense for us to move forward with purchasing and implementing our solution, or if we should part ways. Does that sound like a fair next step for you? It does. Great. Now, real quick, before I have some questions for you, I'd love to hear, what are your expectations from the call? Now, the prospect gives you the expectations, and then you dive into the actual discovery portion. Now, the discovery portion is a very important part of the demo. Sometimes they're split into two calls. So if you've already done the discovery, then you don't need to redo it again during the demo. But for the sake of this video, I'm going to say we're doing it all on one call. Now, what my buddy was asking me around the discovery is, what questions am I asking? But more importantly, how am I using the answers to those questions? And that's the part that really got me to think, how am I using the answers to the question? I'm not sure, I just asked the question. And upon further discovery, what my friend realized is that I was really just asking a bunch of qualifying questions that don't really matter until they were actually supposed to buy, like how many users they have, some stuff around how they're doing things today, but not going deep enough into understanding the limitations of their current process and the impacts of their negative processes. So he pushed me really hard and he said, look, if you ask a question and the answer to that question is not giving you information that you could use through the demo, it's a stupid question. Fair enough. So I reworked a lot of the questions that I asked. Now, what I'm going to walk you through today is how I structure that discovery portion so that way you can figure out the best questions based on your product or service that you can input there. The first part of the discovery is the current state. What is going on within the organization today, and how are they trying to solve their problem without using a solution like yours? Once you understand the current state, you need to dive in and really figure out what the problem with the current state is. You must understand the problems that your prospect is facing so that way you could properly tailor your demo to show that you're a true solution to those problems. The next part of this is actually the impact. If those problems have no impact, there is not going to be a deal. I promise you that. So really focus on the impact of the problem, the impact of their current state. So then that way, as you're going through your demo, you can show them that you are solving the negative impact and adding all of these positive impacts. The next part is the ideal state. Where is your prospect trying to go? If you can understand the perfect world for the prospect, you could bridge the gap during the demo, which builds a lot of excitement and a lot of urgency to actually lead to closing a sale. And then finally, you must understand the level of priority solving their problem is. If the priority level is really low, it's going to be very challenging to get a deal done. So you need to understand what level of priority it is. But then if it's not as high as you'd like it to be, what would it take to make it a higher priority? Because you want to understand exactly what's going on in their world, because throughout the demo, you're going to use that information to build a stronger business case. Now let's talk about the actual demo portion of the demo. And this is where my friend gave me a lot of insights. I was going through the demo just how I always did. I'd start somewhere, I'd end somewhere else. And I'll just sort of go through the demo in a way that made the most sense to me. And one of the first questions my buddy asked me was, how many segments of your demo are there? It's like, segments. I have no idea what you mean by that. You're like, well, how many features? I'm like, I go over, 100 features. Like, there's a lot of features in our demo. I'm clicking all over the place. And then he got very serious. He said, no. You're not showing 100 features. You're showing 5. And those features you're showing are what I call segments. And each one of those segments must be designed to show the prospect exactly how their world is going to be better because this solution is in place. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is by customizing it based on the discovery. So we went through the demo segment by segment. We split it up. We chose 5 segments of the demo, 5 parts of the product that were the most impactful. And as I go through each section, my friend gave me the next piece of advice, which is really important, using trial closes. Now, what a lot of salespeople do is after they show part of the product, they say, does this look like something that would be good? Or are you liking where this is going so far? Or do you think this could be a good solution for you? Not good, boring. Every sales rep does it, and it actually hurts your chances, in my opinion. What you actually want to do is get the prospect to verbalize how this solution is going to impact their business. So instead of asking, does this align with what you're looking for? Ask, how do you see this impacting your team? How do you see having this kind of functionality making an actual improvement in your business? What do you think this will do to solve X problem? How could you use something like this to prevent something like that from ever happening again? These are the types of questions you want to be asking. Those how questions that get the prospect not only to verbalize how it's going to impact them, but for them to visualize what the world will be like by having your solution in place. All right, so you've gone through the 5 segments of the demo. Now the next part is actually closing the sale. And I can tell you, when I first started, I was very nervous about the close. And I told my buddy at the time, I said, I get very uncomfortable here because I just feel like I'm becoming pushy and weird. So he started laughing and said, well, what are you asking? And I kind of told him all the tactics that I had learned from different books and different people that I was around on how to close the sale. And he started laughing even more and said, cut all of that out. Kyle, if you knew you had something that was very valuable to me, how would you ask if I wanted to use it? And I kind of thought for a second. I said, well, I'd probably just say, would you like to use this thing? And he said, right. So why would you say anything else? And that's where I really learned an interesting lesson. Sales is less about the close than it is about everything leading up to it. And a lot of times we put so much pressure on the close, try to say these perfect words and these little tricky tactics to try to increase the psychological probability that someone's going to move forward with our solution. When at the end of the day, all of that work should have been done throughout the entire demo, not at the very end when you're trying to close the sale. So originally, my buddy told me, strip all that away and just simply ask, hey, I've walked you through everything here. I'd love to hear from your perspective. When would you like to move forward? And just stop talking. They'll tell you if they're ready to move forward or not. And then over time, yeah, you could use these other tactics and use them to overcome objections and things like that. But at a basic level, if we can't just ask for the business and get the business, then none of these tricks are going to work because something's going wrong throughout the demo itself. I thought that was pretty wise advice from somebody who has made over $4 million in commission over the course of their career. And that's the structure there. Really spend some time making sure you have the right structure for your sales demos. I want you to think about that upfront contract, script it out, make it sound more natural by practicing it a bunch. Next, the discovery questions. Make sure you're asking those and make sure they're relevant to information you need throughout the actual demo portion. And then for that demo portion, make sure you're splitting it into segments and you're getting the prospect to visualize what the world is going to be like if they had a solution like yours. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your time here, and I look forward to talking to you soon.